Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Cantey, and this is another episode of Living Enlightened Every Day. I created these podcasts in order to dialogue about how we can live enlightened with life unfolding around us in the way that it unfolds, exactly as it is. So today we're going to explore, what is it that we do that gets in the way of living our life from our essential nature, from peace and love and joy? Let's look at that. So I had this dream, and I woke up and it was so bizarre. I usually wake up with sort of these insights and understanding. This was this amazing insight and understanding, and it's one I've had before, but it was just so vivid. It was so real, and it reminded me of how we tend to build walls around ourselves, around who we are, and we project out who we want to be. We're protecting ourselves from someone coming in. Meanwhile, we're projecting who we think we should be or need to be in certain situations, events, circumstances. Have you ever done that? Projected this image. It's like we wear a mask. We protect ourselves from the world and we project who we think we need to be in the world in order to be accepted or loved, based on usually, of course, how we grew up. But for every human on the planet, it is part of our humanness, that we are born as babies with big brains and no way to get out of our mother's bodies except for this little tiny canal. So we are the most immature baby born on the planet. Every other animal or mammal is born, much more mature. It takes us quite a while to reach maturity. So when we're very young, we learn to be who we are based on how we are treated in our families, in our culture, in our environments. When we are very young, we learn to accommodate those around us. We learn that if we're being good, if what we're doing is acceptable, then we are rewarded in some way. And if we're not being good, we are usually punished in some way. The way we interpret those signals, of course, is so very important, because we really don't have the capacity as little babies and as little toddlers and as young children, and even as sometimes young adults, we don't have the capacity to really interpret what is happening. So what often happens is when we're very young, we learn to get what we want or what we think we want. We get what we want by acting a certain way. And we try to keep out what we don't want by not acting, let's say, in a certain way, right? So depending on how we grow up, we withhold ourselves or who we really want to be in a situation. We learn not to cry and kick and scream because our parents are going to punish us. And we learn what is considered acceptable to those parents in that situation. And we try to accommodate that most of the time in the best way that we know how as little babies, toddlers, children, and even young adults. And so, what came up for me is this idea of this building this house. And I think Mickey Singer, uses this example in his book. I'm not sure, I haven't read it in a long time, The Untethered Soul. But this came to me in a dream, and it was this idea that when I was very young, when we're very young, and it's that first time that we feel really, I'm going to use the word burned. We just feel burned by, a young love, a young boyfriend, or something like. For me, it was a young boyfriend, or something like that, where we feel loved. It could have been a family member, even younger, of course. But it's this idea that, oh, I'm burned. And I'm going to use the sun as an example. The sun is burning me. I'm going to build a roof. I'm going to build a structure over me so that I don't have to be burned anymore. And I build this structure, right? I call it this roof. I'm protected. The sun. I believe that I am fully protected. And now, I'm happy in there for a while. I'm not getting burned by the sun, but now I've got this, this cold wind is whipping around. This wind is kind of whipping through this structure, and I'm just like, oh, that is so uncomfortable. It's making me so unhappy. And I've got to figure out a way to keep this wind out. And I build these walls, but I think, oh, I'll leave some windows, some holes in the walls. I still want to see what's going on out there, but I'll build some holes in the walls. But I start building these walls. I start taking these big bricks, these cinder blocks, as my imagination, these cinder blocks, and I'm building these walls. And so much better. Now the wind doesn't come in. These nor'easters that are blowing don't come in. But once in a while, occasionally, these nor'easters do come by, and they're coming through these holes in the wall, these window spaces, these empty spaces, and the rain is coming in. The hail can come in. These storms come in once in a while. It's not very often, but they do. They come in, and I'm like reacting to that. Oh my gosh, I should have put some windows in. Let's go to the Lowe's, the Home Depot. Let's just order, they'll deliver them right here. And I get my windows in. Now I can really adjust that. But of course, with the windows there, the wind's not coming in, the hail's not coming in. I'm feeling pretty protected for a while, but something happens, and now there's just so much light through the windows. And I realize, wow, I can just dim that light. I can just put up these blinds. Once again, I'm going to order online. They'll deliver right to my little fortress that I'm creating, right? I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to do anything. I just order online. There they come. And I put up these blinds and these curtains, and I'm just feeling really protected. I've got the AC and the heat. I just made everything just perfect for me. I'm not getting burned. I'm not getting blown around. I'm not getting the surprise hailstorms or anything like that. And and yet, I'm sensing that I'm pretty alone in here. Once in a while I see somebody going by outside. Once in a while somebody built a house kind of nearby, and we're kind of yelling out the windows, or we're yelling through the gap in the window or something, trying to communicate. It's not great. It's not perfect, but at least I'm not getting burned. I'm not getting windblown. I'm not getting battered by the hail, right? That's how we justify this for ourselves. So, in this analogy, of course, all this wind and all these things are the ways we feel hurt by people, we feel betrayed by people, we feel that we aren't understood by people, we feel that we aren't accepted by people. We just keep retreating into this cozy space within. And to be honest, when you're an introvert like me, and sometimes it's a really nice place to be. And so we justify it with things like that, right? And in our spiritual work, we come to this realization that we've created this sanctuary within, but as we are protecting ourselves from everything that is without, from the relationships and the situations and the events that we think could possibly hurt us. We are also not available to give of our true nature, our true self, through the walls, through the windows and the shades drawn and the doors. We can't get through the barrier that we've actually created. So our relationships aren't as fulfilling, our careers aren't as fulfilling, and we can't really figure out why. It's sort of like I'm doing what everyone else is doing. Everyone else, by the way, is doing this too, because culturally, that's what we're taught. We're taught if you don't like it, then protect yourself. Do this, do what I'm doing. Do what my mom did and my grandmom did and her grandmom did, and do, ancestrally what we've done. We've been persecuted as a group. Do this, do that. And so we're all going, oh, okay, this is the way it's done on the human plane. Yeah, this is what we're all doing. And the most that we expect is somebody builds a little house or moves their little house right next to us. And we're like, oh, okay, I can sort of see you. I can sort of hear you, and what I see and hear kind of matches what I am and what I want you to see and hear from me. And we have this, I'm going to call it ego to ego relationship. My ego kind of fits right in with your ego. My house fits right in with your house. There's an interesting analogy. It came to me in a dream. So here we go. And so in this dream, well, actually before I tell you about the dream, in my spiritual work, when I realized this many, many years ago, when I started doing this work of letting go, it was really letting go. As a matter of fact, just now, this second, I remember an exercise vividly. It was a meditation, and I had this vision. Oh, wow, I forgot all about this. It was yeah, gosh, it was one of the most powerful moments in my self-realization. And I was in a very small group where we were meditating, and we had this, I had this vision through whatever guided meditation it was, but I was sitting in a house with no walls and no roof. I know that sounds weird, but it was a house with no walls and no roof. In other words, no boundaries. And the sun was shining, and I was at the sea, of course, because that's where I feel at home. And I was free. And there was absolutely nothing that could come into my space that could harm me or hurt me. And there was everything, just everything that I could release out from these no walls, non-walls. And it was me expanding and in my expression and my experience. And it was really, I even drew a picture. I'll try to find that and insert it if I can find it. But and I wrote this poem, and it was this sense of freedom that I've never ever had before. And that really was very early on in my spiritual journey. And so this sense of walling ourselves in with our thoughts, our ideas, our concepts, brick by brick, to protect ourselves as if someone or something out there can hurt us or can take something away from us. And what I realized in that first early vision was no one, no thing could ever take anything from us. We are the divine emanation of spirit itself. And therefore, what we are can never be diminished. It can never be lessened. It can never be hurt, harmed, or endangered. And so back to this structure, it was then that I began, tearing down the structure, because I had this vision of what it felt like, the experience of freedom. And yet for me personally, it wasn't this instantaneous uh crashing of the walls and the structure, right? It wasn't. For me personally, it took some years of dismantling and really understanding, not needing to understand certainly every brick, every situation, every thought, but it was the idea of the structures in my life, like my family, like my mother, my father, ancestral, like my grandparents and their grandparents, and my Native American heritage and my European heritage, and it was like all these things, my feminine heritage, identifying with the divine feminine and being in a patriarchal society. It sounds like a lot, but it isn't. It isn't, because the realization of freedom, the realization of who and what I am, dissolves what seems like these complicated structures. So my life, my the structure that I built to protect me from this burn, and from these betrayals, from feeling like I don't belong, or like I don't fit in, or like no one could possibly understand me. All of a sudden I realized, love understands love always. Love sees love always. Love can only see itself always. So the ego really can only see ego, it can only see the structure. And love itself sees the infinite. It is infinite and eternal. And that's where we see from, as we dismantle, this structure we've built around ourselves. So in this dream, I'm free, I'm running, through the garden, and down the little path to the beach, and I hear this, like, from this little house, I hear, "Hey, hey," and I'm like, "Oh, hey." Who's in there? And it's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm going to the beach. And I hear this voice, and he says, yeah, I see you going to the beach every day. And I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. It's amazing. It's another beautiful day in paradise. Paradise. And I was like, yeah, it's gorgeous out here. And he's like, yeah, but you're barefoot. Aren't you afraid you're going to step on some shells or some rocks or something? It's like, well, I do sometimes step on a shell or a rock. It's not very comfortable, but it doesn't happen very often. And to be able to run with my feet in the sand 99% of the time without a care in the world, I'm willing to have that happen. He was taken aback a little bit, the shadowy figure in this brick house. And I hear, hey, well, what about the bees? You're standing in the garden, and there's so many bees out there. I was like, well, no, I'm seeing some hummingbirds, and there's definitely some butterflies. And on that bush way over there were some bees swarming on the bottle brush. I definitely saw some bees, but they're kind of all doing their own thing, and most of them are pretty beautiful. Well, what about the snakes? And this is my dream, right? I'm going, well, yeah, yeah, but you've met someone out here who loves snakes. I know that's crazy, right? But I used to have an 8-foot boa constrictor, so I have no problem with snakes. But I was like, yeah, yeah, there's some snakes out here. Picked up a rattlesnake by accident one time. That wasn't smart, but never been bitten. All the years I've played with snakes, I have never been bitten by well, that's not true. The boa did bite me once, but never been bitten out in the wild by a snake with all the snakes that are out there. And I live in North Florida, so it's a reasonable question, even in a dream. So here I am, just having this conversation with this person, and days go by, and we have these conversations. And I can sense this longing with this person in the house. They're just longing, and I'm like, oh, I can sense who you are in there. And one time I went by, and he was like, hey, I really want to get to know you more. I said, oh, I want to get to know you too, but it's really hard to hear you. It's very, very muffled. It takes a lot of concentration for me to kind of hear what you're saying. And he said, oh, I'll take care of that. So I go about my way, and the next day I come by on my way to the beach, and I see there's a loudspeaker outside, and he's like, "Can you hear me now?" Just like the commercial. I'm like, "Wow, yes, whoa, I can hear you. Sure. Interesting. Not what I expected, but there you go. You kind of solved that problem. Okay." And then I said, "But it's really difficult to see you. I don't really know what you look like, which is fine. I get a sense of you, and I know you're a beautiful person in there." And he's like, "Oh, no, no, I'll take care of that. I'll take care of that." The next day I come by, and there's this big TV screen, with his image projected on it. I'm like, "Whoa, hey, that's quite the TV screen you got there. That's amazing. That's some HD or something, whatever the new thing is, very high def." And it's just like, yeah, wow, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. And I said, but if it's hard to really get to know you, I would really love to be able to, just touch you, just have you in my space and just touch you, be near you. And he goes, "Oh, no, no problem. I got a solution for that too." And I just went about my merry way. And next day, dream world, just like that. And he's got the only way I can describe it, my son was in NICU, and they have those little gloves, they're gloves that you can hold the babies and everything, and I'm sure they have them for other situations, and you can touch them, but you're all protected. And he's got these thick rubber gloves, through the walls of the house, and I was like, he's holding my hand. I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, I get that, I get that." And I said, "Not quite what I had in mind. I'm just gonna go run on the beach. Why don't you come out here? Why don't you come out here?" He's like, "Yeah, no, no, there's too many things out there. There's just too many possibilities of getting hurt, harmed. There's too many things that could hurt me." And I remembered that, you know, I remembered that. It broke my heart because I remembered that, we grow up and we think we have to protect ourselves, and it doesn't mean that the hurt doesn't come. It doesn't mean that things don't hurt us, but it means that it only lasts for the time that it lasts. It only lasts for the moment, or the week, or the month, or the year, but it's not happening now. Right now the sun is shining, and the wind is blowing, and the birds are chirping, and the ocean is calling, and I've got to just be free in all of this. And I said, I can't be here with you like this. And he was begging me, "Just love me like I am." And I said, "But that isn't who you are. The projection of you isn't you. I sense and feel you. And that projection isn't who you are. The loudspeaker with the voice and the modulation and the autocorrect isn't who you are. And the gloves, are just veiling the the connection that is possible. Yes, it's protecting you, and it's veiling you and me from really experiencing oneness and wholeness. We can dissolve that sense of separation, being free in this moment of joy. Who knows if a hurricane might come, if a storm might come, if the hail might come, and yeah, we take shelter, sure, but let's make it a temporary shelter that protects us from just this moment. And then we step back out into our life fully and freely, committed to our authentic expression of wholeness and oneness, because it is peace and love and joy. It is not a projection of peace, a projection of who we think we need to be in that situation. And it's funny because I just felt myself walk away and there was sadness. And it was okay because I know that for me, it was my reminder for me that I still have some of these blocks, some of these sheltered areas where I want to protect myself. So my dream, I say what is the only reality to a dream? It is the consciousness of the dreamer. It's the only reality to a dream is the consciousness of a dreamer. In other words, there was no one else in that dream. There was no other person. There was no other entity. There was no one I met or didn't meet, right? It's all me. It's all who I am. And that is the oneness and the wholeness of life. It is all who the oneness is, how one is expressing. And it appears to us as this multiplicity and diversity. And even in that multiplicity and diversity, we're all like hiding in our shelters. But true connectivity, true connection dissolves the walls. It dissolves the need for shelter when we realize that even those that we thought hurt us way back then, even those that we thought betrayed us, betrayed our love or our sensibility or our they didn't accept our gift of who we were bringing to the table. They didn't accept that, and we took that as we created a permanent solution to that temporary storm or betrayal or disappointment. And so now we are living confined and constricted because of those few events. When I look at the few events where I felt really devastated, for a period of time, when I think of the period of time that I was happy and the period of time that I was devastated, they don't even compare. You can't even compare 95% to 5%. It's not, they're not even equal. My life has been pretty footloose and fancy free. I've been blessed in so many ways. And I look back at the times that I felt hurt and they were just blips on the screen, but they're not happening now. That hurt, even when I can say I experienced being hurt, or I had the knowing of betrayal, or the knowingness of lack or loss or limitation. It was a moment. It was a moment. Even if it was a week, even if it was a year, and it was I can't diminish the feeling of grief or loss at not feeling accepted or not feeling whole in those moments. But I can't, without relying on the other person, without protecting myself from the person, I get to bring wholeness from within. I get to know that it is the truth of my being. It is who and what I am. The only way I can diminish it is by literally, talk about a 8-foot boa constrictor, constricting it and stepping on the hose or wrapping the hose, kinking the hose, and then going, it's I don't have love. I'm not experiencing love. I'm not whole. I'm not perfect and complete. And it's like, oh gosh, I just step off the hose and allow the fullness of life to express through me. And it cannot fully express through us when it is blocked just with these bricks, with this heavy material that we have laid on top of our wellspring. This spring that wants to just explode out of us, right? We cannot experience our own fullness, no matter how, even if we get somebody who builds their little house next to us and they have this beautiful projection and we have our beautiful projection, and we agree, oh, these projections fit perfectly with each other. These projections are right for each other right now. It's sort of our ego self loving the ego self, and that's okay. I mean, we can be there as long as we want. But when that doesn't fulfill us or satisfy us, we'll wonder what the heck is happening. Well, now you know. Now you know. It's like, oh, and just take down a couple of bricks. Oh, and release some of the love and the peace and the joy that is right where I am waiting, just waiting to burst forth. And it dissolves the walls that we have created. We do not ever have to go through brick by brick and figure it out. Sometimes people like me, it's helpful to go back. I love the Ho'oponopono. When I talked to Edward Miller weeks ago about, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. We can use that for our highest self. We can use that for other people. We can use that for ourselves to forgive ourselves for not remembering who we are. But maybe it's not a but. And we allow spirit to be spirit as us. And remember, it is never me who does the work. It is always the Father, the Creator, the Spirit. It's life itself, just living itself. I just move my little projected image and my projected loudspeaker and my projected, way I want to touch the world or not touch the world. Don't get my hands dirty. Don't get your feet dirty. I love being in, through, and on and as the earth, feeling all of it, the birds, the bees, the snakes. Can't say I love every single minute, every single day, but I can be in harmony with it. And if there's something coming, I could just move out of the way a little bit, like water, just kind of move out of the way and let it go by. I don't have to attach to it. I don't have to put up my walls, and fight it. I can just let it go by. So that was my wild and crazy dream, right? That reminder of what I have done in my life to protect myself from those few moments and what I have left to do, removing the blocks. Some are new, some I find, oh God, I want to pick this one back up and put it back in place because that last storm was a doozy. Am I sure? It's like, are you sure you don't want to create just a wall for the nor'easters that come through? Say, no, I know where that leads to. I know where that leads to. Build one wall, build all four, fill in the windows, the door, just no. Just no. We live in a magnificent world. And we are all like, when we are love, we see love everywhere. And unfortunately, or maybe it's not unfortunate, it's the way it is. When we are not love, it's very difficult to see love. What we see instead is how your image fits with my image, how your projection fits with my projection, how your loudspeaker is working with my loudspeaker. It's one or the other. We keep messing around. We say, oh, well, I'll just fix my image. I'll just change my image on the screen. I'll just make my screen bigger. I'll just make my loudspeaker louder. We just keep trying to fix the image, but who we are is perfect. How would God create anything not in its image and likeness? There you go. Starts with ourselves. It starts taking down one brick. And if that seems too hard, then we just let Spirit do it. We just say, I surrender. Spirit, I'll just stop talking on the loudspeaker and I'll just stop projecting the image on the screen. And I will just sit here until you, God, life, Spirit, love, moves me into the place where I can step off the hose, step off the wellspring and just allow that to flow forth and dissolve for me all that needs to be dissolved. And what happens is everything is restored. Nothing is missing. Nothing is lacking. And it's hard to even imagine that there are times where we want to pick up the bricks. That feeling restores all the years that the locusts have eaten. But trust me, in our mind, in our imagination, the years that the locusts have eaten has only been like that. A love that flows forth. So I hope my wild and crazy dream helps you remember we're all doing that. I shouldn't say all. Many of us are doing that. We're taught to do that. We're taught that that's what we have to do in this world. Project a better image. Project through a louder loudspeaker, a clearer loudspeaker to be clear, to be heard. I invite you to run around naked. Okay, don't tell them I said that, but I invite you to let it all go and rest in the spirit that you are. If you've enjoyed this, please hit like and share and subscribe. You'll get the next one whenever it comes out, probably next Thursday. And let me know. I've created these as a dialogue. I know it doesn't seem like that sometimes, but I appreciate so much your PMs, your emails. I appreciate the dialogues that come up around these subjects. And I'm so grateful to so many teachers like Nikki Singer and so many people that have helped me understand these principles and practices. It's just such a beautiful world we live in where we can turn on inspiration and remember the truth of our being like this. So I hope this week you laugh so much, love so much, and live enlightened every single day.
Thanks for watching. Join us again next Tuesday at 7 a.m. Mountain Time for Living Enlightened with Elizabeth Cantey. Integrating your spirit, mind, and body. Learn more at www.ntmedia.org.